Welcome everybody to today's edition of Coffee Break. My name is Zach Grayson from FG & Associates, and with me is the man with the financial plan, and we are live today in our little studio. And Chris, how are we doing, sir? Glad to have you here in Montreal with me.
We're doing great. Officially done the first week there of the year. It's in the books. It was a great start to the new year. I'm happy to be here, and we're starting the year off great.
Yep, we just had a great podcast with Axel Raymond from Axel Raymond Tailors. Thank you again to him for coming down here and meeting us and doing the podcast. Great podcast. It was great.
I loved it, Zach. Not only was it a great podcast, he touched on so many points where our philosophies meet. Talked about discipline. Talk about gambling on yourself, taking the risk, going at it. You saw that he's mixing his passion in fashion. Oh, there's a rhyme right there. Passion in fashion with his business. I can't wait for it to launch. I can't wait to help support his business and get our business owners to be able to go and get some suits from Axel. So great podcast and great way to start.
Yeah, no, extremely happy. And so what do we have on the menu today for our coffee break?
All right, guys. So good news for you guys. Zach has no idea about the little questions I'm gonna ask him. We're on the way here. Came down from Quebec City. Zach came down from Sherbrooke. We're a studio here on the South Shore of Montreal. And over the weekend, I received a newsletter from Tim Ferriss, and in it was 17 questions that he asks himself that kind of changed the way he saw the outlook on life. And it's something, too, that I want you guys as our listeners to think about. I'm just going to ask him a few of them, but it's a good way to reflect upon the deeper meaning and the deeper processes that you can instill in your business or your personal life as well. So, Zach, are you ready?
All right. Yeah, let's do this.
All right. So the first one, Zach, if you could only work 2 hours per week on your business, what would you do? And we'll start with the FG&A side, and then we'll start with the consulting side. But maybe you can focus more on the FG&A because it's the business we've been doing more. But I'd like to hear your thoughts. If you only had 2 hours a week where you could work on the business, what would you be doing?
So are we excluding meeting with clients? Because obviously if we need money to come in.
The client meetings, take that apart. Let's say that doesn't count in your 2 hours. But all the other time you have for the stuff that you do, you have 2 hours to go at it. What would you be doing?
That's a great question. I think what it would be to, because when someone brings in an insurance need, and especially if you're young, non-smoker, it's very straight to the point what we're going to do. But there's so many different products and varieties of different things for people who have special conditions or who have maybe some medical issues that they had in the past. So if I were to spend only 2 hours on my business that doesn't have anything to do with an actual meeting, closing a client, I think it would be just to learn more about the different varieties of products and to talk with our suppliers to know what they offer differently from one another. Because once you go into these more difficult cases, it's such an advantage and it's such a cheat code to have all these different suppliers that we work with. We work with nearly 20 here in Canada. So yeah, I think it would be just better educating myself. So when I do get into that meeting, that client knows that he has all the different variety of products so that it's specifically tailored to what he needs at that moment.
That's good.
So that's a tough one.
Yeah, and I want you guys, you can apply it to your life, to your business, to where you work at. If you can only do 2 hours of work per week, what would you focus on, which would increase the ROI? And
that's such a good question, Chris, because I don't even know if I spend that much time doing that right now, but you just made me realize how important it is.
Yeah.
Because you get so caught up in, the meeting with the clients, and then there's paperwork to do, and then you're prepping for your next meeting, and then just working on the business itself, having the meetings and all that. But sometimes, that the most important thing is easy to push aside when you have so many other things going on. Yeah. And that's when we talk to business owners, and, sometimes we have to have that talk with ourselves of, you have to spend time working not only in the business, which is meetings, numbers, paperwork and all that, but working on the business itself, on your skills, because that's going to be the best ROI you can ever have. So, wow, great question. All right.
So
can I send it back to you?
Of course.
Or, yeah, so what about you?
All right.
Because you're on more the investment side of our firm. I'm more on the insurance side. So curious to hear your end on the investment side.
If I have 2 hours per week, look, I think it would be 30 minutes focused on my actual portfolios for my clients. The good thing is that work's already been done. I know pretty much every investment inside and out, where if I need a bond for a short-term duration, where to look at. If I need a quality manager, I know to look at X, Y, and Z. I would spend, though, the other hour and a half, Zach, going over my client portfolios and reaching out to them. Because if they're well taken care of, I got their portfolios are in need, the referrals keep coming back. So if I had 2 hours, it'd be client focus, even on my COIs, my center of influences. And I think with that, it'd be tough. But look, that would be my highest ROI. And I started doing it too, just reaching out more, because one of the biggest complaints clients get from their advisors is they don't reach out enough. So it is very important. But to those listening too, I do want to mention though, when we put a plan in place for a client, it is a long-term plan.
Of course.
Sometimes the best solution is to do nothing. With that said, though, you do need to know that they're looking after your things. So for me, for every client, whether you know it or not, every single quarter I review your portfolio. Is there a modification? Is there a rebalancing? Is there anything to do? Most of the time there isn't, because it's still in line with our long-term goals. But that's what I would focus on. 30 minutes, just the structure itself, hour and a half, the rest of the time. All right, we're talking. Is anything happening? What's going on? Is there anything I can do?
And that's where you can kind of see, for those who aren't too familiar with the financial services business, that's where you can see the discrepancy between both sides of the investment side and the insurance side.
Totally.
The insurance side is when you meet that client, there is a need right now to cover a
100%.
risk. Because when I meet someone, my job is to look at someone's financial plan to know, where are you vulnerable?
Yeah.
Wherever you're vulnerable, let's put something in place to make sure that that risk is mitigated as much as possible. But once it's done, you just have to stay available to make sure if they have to change the address, change the beneficiary or whatever, or if they need more details on the plan, sometimes you need to send them their contract back or whatever. That's more of the ongoing service once the insurance is sold on my end. But on your end, the markets, the news, we've seen so many things on the news just in 2024 that can stress people out in regards to their portfolio. So I love how it's more focused around letting them know that you're constantly there for them and just reaching out in case, because a lot of people won't reach out to you right away, but I'm sure you've had a ton of calls where you called them and they said, hey, I knew I had to call you, actually. I was planning on calling you next
very
week.
often.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, and what I love about your answer, Zach, it's life and death situations for you, but no, the risk on the insurance side is massive. And people don't understand like the impacts it can have. That's why the importance of you fitting their needs with the best product. And a lot of people are insured, right? They have the insurance with the job. They have their credit card insurance. I mean, they think they're insured, but they don't really know exactly what they're missing out on. And those little black holes where they can be really seriously at risk.
And one thing that's very hard about when you're thinking about insurance is two things. One thing is that you have to think about the day you're going to die. Now, if we're talking specifically about life insurance, that's very hard to do. But another thing is that you're purchasing something that isn't for you. You're never going to touch that benefit once you pass away. You're not going to touch that money. It's going to be for someone else. And I've had a client this week where, he wasn't for insurance at all. And I love that because I love someone who's ready to challenge me, because I know the real benefit of insurance. I know why it's important. So I always welcome the challenge. And I told him, I said, hey, tell me all your questions, tell me all your arguments. Let's have a conversation. 100%. And we didn't necessarily agree, but the call ended up on a really good note. Everybody's smiling, kind of laughing about the fact that we went back and forth. But the tough thing about insurance is you have to think about the day you're going to die. Very hard to do. You don't want to think about that. The other thing is that it's a very selfless thing to do, because you're not the one that's really at risk. Yeah, we're looking at the risk of your death, but if you pass away, your problems are solved. You're not solved, but they're over. It's the other person, it's the surviving spouse that's going to have to deal with that, who's going to be mourning your death, who's going to have to pay for the funeral expenses, who's going to have to pay the mortgage on one salary, who's going to have to pay the house off if they can. And or even take care of the kids. So that's one thing that I think is really hard for people to take in, is that first of all, we're talking about the day you're going to die or the day that you get injured or get a critical illness. You always want to hope that you're part of the people who it's never going to happen to. But if you are that one person, are you really going to put the burden on someone else for the cost of probably your Wi-Fi, what your Wi-Fi costs you monthly? So that's
and the last thing I'm going to say about this topic is you have to be able to have those difficult conversations. It's not an easy conversation. It's not a fun conversation.
No.
But you will grow more as a person by attacking those difficult conversations than you will if you don't.
And I see it in couples where a lot of the conversations that I bring to the table, and that's why you have to be really comfortable having those tough conversations, because a lot of times these are things that the couple has never talked about. Hey, what happens if you pass away? Are you going to keep the house? 100%. What are you going to do with the kids? Are you going to be good enough with one salary to pay off the? Where's my money going to? Do we even have a will in place that is going to make sure that the money goes to you, because we're only de facto spouses in Quebec, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the money. So there's so many different things. So great question, and brought up a really interesting topic.
That's question number 1. All right. Question number 2. This one might be a little difficult to answer because it's kind of out there, Zach, but what would happen if you did the opposite for 48 hours?
So 2 hours, I'm studying on my product. 48 hours, would it happen if I did the opposite?
So, no, it's a separate question to the first question, in the sense that for the next 48 hours, you're doing everything else differently than what you're doing. So let's say less sad, unless you're doing that. What does that life look like? Is it good? Is it bad? Are there things that you can improve on?
I think if I did everything differently for the next 48 hours, what would be tough is that I'm a very structured person, like I don't have a boss looking at my numbers right now, but I have all my numbers at the end of every day, even to the number of hours I worked that day, because I want to see how many hours I put in, and if that correlates, and I'm assuming it does, but I want to see the correlation between the amount of hours I put in and also know which quarter, how many hours I put, because everybody can assume that during the summer, financial advisors, especially in insurance, how many people do you know that are shopping for insurance in the middle of July? They're on vacation. They don't want to talk about the day they're going to die or putting all those things in place. So if I did everything differently for the next 48 hours, what I think would happen is that I would lose track of what's next, what's the most important thing on the list. I want
to ask you a follow-up on that. Is there anything that you're not doing well right now that if you did the opposite of it, that you get more benefit from it? For example, if someone procrastinates, if for the next 48 hours, rather than say, I'll do it in 5 minutes, you do it now? Are there any things in your life right now that you would benefit from?
That I would benefit from? I'm not going to answer your question directly because you made me think of something else, because this week has actually been the week that I've procrastinated the less. And I'm not someone who procrastinates a lot. Actually not that much, but maybe if there's a task that I have that could wait to next week, if it's not urgent, maybe sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I'll do that next week. Today I have these 3 things left. I'm going to do that. And then after that, I'll close shop, whatever. But this week has been a week where the stuff that I had planned for the day until 5-6 p.m. I was done at like 3 o'clock, 2:30, and I think it has to do with the fact that I've been fasting for the past. I'm at 65 hours now that I've been fasting right now. I'm trying to do a 72-hour fast. If you guys have heard of Gary Brecka, he put out this protocol here that was really made public more with Dana White, and it's something that I tried. And honestly, the big differences that I've noticed is, first of all, when I wake up in the morning and my alarm goes off, one area where I procrastinate a lot. I hit the snooze. If I don't have to be up for a meeting, for example, it's easy for me when you don't have a boss making sure you're there at a certain time to be like, let me do another 10 minutes in bed or whatever. Now, since I've been fasting, when I wake up, my feet are on the ground, I am gone. And another area is, as soon as I have whatever's on my to-do list, next thing up, I get to it, I do it right away. I don't take time to consider, is this important?
That's
Can I
huge.
be doing something else instead or whatever? I just get it done, on to the next one. So that's something where procrastinating, it's something that this week I've seen a big difference,
In that.
which is kind of fascinating because I thought it'd be the opposite.
Yeah.
I thought my stomach would be hurting, I'd feel weak and all that. My energy, and you've seen me all day.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
had a massive
No,
day.
we've been
I'm
on
freaking
fire.
flying right now. And yeah, so
You made me think of a story, guys. So quick story time. In 2018, before I started the business, I met this gentleman who was also a business owner and financial advisor in the West End. Extremely wealthy, one of the best in the business, manages hundreds of millions of dollars, has a great business. He sold out there. He was ready to retire. I was in his office and then we went to lunch. But one thing that will always mark me, we're in his office, phone rings. Christian, give me a second. Answers. Client had a simple task, something small to do. Hangs up, says, Christian, give me 10 seconds. I'm going to get this done right now. I don't let anything train. When there's something to do, it is done right away. Just that efficiency. He could have, I'm going to send it here. I'm going to do it. No, he got it done. So that was something that was pretty impressive on that side. And extremely humble, by the way. So that was very refreshing to see. All right, Zach, are you ready for for another question?
hit me.
Okay. So we've both been to university.
Yep.
There are some classes that you learn more than others, but it's sad to say because I'm going back to my days in university. Unless I have very bad memory, I'm having a hard time going back saying, you know what, this I'm using every day, or I just feel sometimes that we're learning just to learn, just to get that piece of paper to open some doors. With that said, if you, Zach Graveson, can create your own real-life MBA, what are the couple pieces of topics that you would teach people that would you say, you know what, people need to know these things to succeed in X, Y, and Z?
Oh, the first one is such an obvious one. And one thing I'm very proud for what's going to happen in 2024 is that I'm going to at least double the amount of presentations I'm going to be doing, whether it's in schools or in different groups, but it's on financial literacy. Financial literacy is, I think it's such a shame that we don't learn more of this in school. And we've both, I mean, you were in finance, I was in marketing, but we both have a business degree and it's not something that we learn. So financial literacy, I think, is the first thing that I would do. I would make it mandatory from the time, as soon as you get into high school. Maybe not a full class. I don't know how you would structure it, but people need to learn the basics. Things like putting 10% of your income aside, having an emergency fund, living within your means. And actually, the biggest hack that I had in 2023 is that my income increased, but I maintained my cost of living, which was massive because we were able to put so much money aside, pay off our debts, and buy a house. So first course that I would do, I believe it would be in high school, and it would be about financial literacy. If I were to do a second one, now this one maybe it would be more, I think as soon as CEGEP for here in Quebec, but university I think it would be important, but it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to do that, but I think it'd be something around entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Because I feel like the only entrepreneurs that you see most of the time, it's people who have had their father, their mother, they have an uncle or a cousin that is an entrepreneur, so they've seen it be possible. One thing that really is disappointing is that you talk to people and they have all these great ideas, but they've never had someone next to them not even say that it's a good or bad idea, just say, hey, try it out.
Yeah.
Give it a shot. And I think entrepreneurship is something that should be more encouraged. There should be more small businesses that are out there so that you could, like I always say, I love to have a group economy. My suits, we just interviewed him. It's Axel Raymond. I ideally, all my money would stay within a group economy where it's people that I know that started their business, someone who cuts hair, someone who does tattoos, or whatever it may be, that it goes in the business. But I think not enough people not only aren't told how to start a business and what to do to become an entrepreneur, and also educated on the risks that come with, because that would avoid you making mistakes that I made at first. But I think not enough people are told to just try it. And your idea isn't stupid. And it's worth a try, because I say it all the time. If you have an idea, for example, someone who wants to start doing nails as a side hustle. Well, if that person doesn't start today, 5 years from now, she'll still be thinking, hey, maybe I should do nails. And I always liked it or whatever. But until she's done it, she might have to do it to notice, you know what? I can't stand being 1 hour talking to someone, doing small talk.
Yep.
I don't enjoy that. And then after that, some people don't show up for their meetings or whatever. But if she doesn't do it today, 5 years from now, she could still be thinking that it might be the right move for her, not knowing that it's actually not. So she's wasting all that time. So financial literacy, number one. And number two, something where, whether it's a seminar or whether it's a university class for those interested, just on entrepreneurship, that encourages people to try things.
Okay.
That's what I think is really missing
In our system.
in our system, 100%.
You gave me an idea. It's not that it's off topic, but in line with the entrepreneurship, and you're talking about that group network supporting your entrepreneurs. We always have bridal showers, baby showers, birthday parties, but why aren't there enough of, hey, this is a business, they do business launches, but where the friends, the family, they get together and you just support that business.
Yeah.
I think that's something we should look into on our consulting side. What if we can help organize every time we know someone that left their 9 to 5, they're starting to launch their business, to go and support them.
Yeah.
It's not as a bad thing, but we don't need the support 5, 10, 15 years down the line.
When you've made it.
When we've made it.
Yeah.
It's those first years. You've lived it. They're tough. They are tough. But if you can have your whole network, your friends, people that follow you, come and just support you, it makes the difference from A to Z. Back on the Tim Ferriss, when he launched BrainQuick in his supplement company, because he used to work for a firm, they were all going out of business. He went to all his friends, families, coworkers, says, guys, can you guys pay up front for one order of my product? They all did. Gave him enough cash for the launch, expand, and grow. So if we could just help support our friends more, our community more for those things, it's going to be night and day. Not only that, we often forget, we are built around entrepreneurs. All these small businesses, mostly if you're working for someone, unless you're working from the government, there's a large chance that you're working for someone that took that risk, put it all on the line, built a business. Now they're the ones feeding and growing the economy.
And unfortunately, what you see when someone around you starts a business is people asking for discounts.
Yes.
And that just grind my gears, because someone who starts a business, they're risking it all. And we just had a great time with Axel talking about his journey of quitting his 9 to 5 and what he's learned. And we talked about that, of people trying to not take advantage, but because they're not doing it in a negative way.
They don't
they don't understand. Realize it. They don't realize. But the one thing you need the most when you're starting a business is to feel that you're not alone. And how do you not feel alone? Well, it's by seeing that people believe in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. How does that feel if you're trying to have people believe in what you're doing and the people who are closest to you come see you and they're not willing to pay full price?
Yeah.
It's a killer. It's a killer, and you should not only be willing to pay full price, you should be telling everybody you know who uses that type of service to go see that person.
Agreed.
But we see it too much. But I love the concept of finding a way, and there's a lot of stuff that we can do that are more like pro bono or whatever with founders. Exactly. Yeah, the podcast
gives them a platform.
Exactly. And finding a way where we can have like some launch parties, help people have a successful launch and whatever. I think that's great, because if you go on the website for FGN Associates, what do you see everywhere? We have our 3 pillars. Our mission at FGN Associates is to help people achieve financial security, freedom, and peace of mind. Security, freedom, peace of mind. Our mission at Founders is to help people achieve financial freedom through entrepreneurship, whether that is right now where we're focused, which is helping people sell their business, unlock the wealth that's trapped within their business, because the majority of people fail to sell their business. And a majority of their net worth is tied to the business. So if they can't sell, that's the same of you at home who's on a salary who can't touch your pension plan. It's a massive issue. So that's one way we're going to help entrepreneurs achieve financial freedom through, again, entrepreneurship. Another way is people who are in the business. It's rolling. Well, we want to be there in consulting and monthly, quarterly meetings where we can help them increase profitability, but especially de-risk the business, decrease the risk associated to the 100%. Business, see where they're vulnerable, put systems in place to avoid that risk, whether it's you're counting too much on one employee, and if he passes away, you're losing a massive chunk of sales, you put an insurance place in there, or just to open your eyes to the fact that 70% of your business is coming from one supplier. What if that supplier moves on? You're in big trouble. And the last way that we're going to support entrepreneurs in achieving financial freedom is at the start. We want to be able to help aspiring entrepreneurs, and that's mostly through our content, our podcast, having people like Axel on the show, and we have Devin Eaton we had on the show, we have Raph Melanfan we had on the show, and we have so many more lined up that I'm extremely excited for. But we want to inspire the young entrepreneurs who maybe have a doubt, who aren't ready to take that leap of faith. 100%. Educate them on how to do it the right way, not the way I did it, but the way Axel did it. And that he got that through our conversations, where I told him all the ways, all the things that I did wrong. And after that, support the business by making it more profitable, less risky, and finally make sure that they harvest the wealth that they've built inside the business through a successful exit.
100%.
So that's...
When I won't say the story because I want you guys to listen to the story with Axel and his podcast, because there's a lot of value in it. But there's a little story about how he went beyond what was expected for one of Zach's orders there. What he may not realize, or maybe he does, but I'm sure Zach, he's found his suit guy for life. He probably will never buy another suit from another big store for the rest of his life. That's what people have to know. The moment you go beyond, you offer exceptional customer service, you can have a customer literally for life.
And one thing that you see, and I've read about it in I'm reading a book right now who mentions it, and Axel is a great example of that. And again, we won't give away the story right away, but sometimes you making a mistake, when we say failures are opportunities, sometimes you making a mistake is an opportunity to show your client that you're willing to go above and beyond. 100%. And I'm just going to use a fictional example. This hasn't actually happened, but let's say a client meets with Chris and they want to put money aside, and they do a mistake in communicating what they want to do with the fund. But they realize their mistake. It's 10 o'clock at night. And they know that if that money goes in there, it's going to be locked in. They won't have access, and they need that money to be available for any emergency. Just an example. But then they send you an email and they're stressing out. You answer right away. And you're like, hey, don't worry about it. Took care of it. I just did this. So sometimes when I'm in a bad situation with a client, and I'm sure you've had it too, well, showing your reaction to the emergency, 100%. Showing your risk management, showing your how quick you are to jump on the ball and to say, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. Or sometimes even if you made a mistake, but they see that, they understand that with someone else, it wouldn't have been that smooth. It would have taken till maybe next Monday because it's Friday night, whatever, you're not reachable. So all that to say that Axel's story is a great example of where he showed that he could go above and beyond. And even though there was a little issue there, well, he fixed it in such a way where now I know I can refer people and say, look, first of all, these suits are great. They're stretchy. They're comfortable. I won't ever buy from another tailor. You're right. But second of all, this happened and Axel did this, and that. He went above and beyond to fix that problem. Well, that reinforces the relationship. It reinforces the referral, because now they know if anything doesn't go wrong, go totally right, well, I know that I have someone I can trust who's going to go above and beyond to make sure that I'm satisfied. So again, another way where failures or mistakes can become opportunities to show the level of service you have.
I love it, Zach. Look, we'll finish up with one more question.
All right.
And you know what? Reading this one, I thought of you right away because you do it.
Okay.
And I want you guys to ask yourselves this same question. What if I could only subtract to solve problems? And it's kind of the way you reverse engineer stuff. So if you could only subtract stuff to solve problems, what would that look like to you?
So you mean to solve problems by taking something away?
Yeah, so let's say you have, I'm going to try to think of an example. Let's say your problem is getting up early. Okay? Not saying that it's yours, but let's say someone listening to this, it's your problem. What can you do differently or subtract out of that to make sure that it doesn't happen? All right, when I go to bed at night, you know what? I take my phone out of the equation. Perfect. So that's done. Rather than staying up and watching TV for the next 30 minutes, I subtract that out of the problem. So my kind of like following what that X problem is, and then literally subtracting the stuff out of it that can relate to this problem. Because some people attack it and they'll say, okay, I have to add this, do that, but they don't really look at what can be actually hindering that. So do you have an example of something where you could subtract stuff out in order to realize or fix a problem?
I do.
You know what? Let me ask it another way, Zach. If you have a problem right now, how do you attack it?
I try to find the cause, because I think too often we look at the symptom instead of treating the cause itself.
Agreed.
So I don't look at, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to drink another coffee. I look at the problem as, why am I tired? What's causing the symptom? So that'd be one thing. But I can answer your question, and I think if I could solve something, or maybe say do something better by subtracting.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes personally, and we're getting personal here on the pod. So if you're listening, I don't know how deep we're in, but 30 minutes in, you've earned the right to hear the more behind the scenes stuff. But if sometimes I put stuff in a to-do list and I'll go step by step, or I have to build a list, or I plan too much before I just do something. Okay. So let's say you have to call a client back. Client calls you, he has a question and all that. Well, sometimes my reaction is going to be, even if I know what I'm going to answer, just to make myself feel better, I'm going to write down everything I'm going to say. And I'm going to look over the paper once, look over the paper twice, look in my notes to make sure that, to just reaffirm and just to confirm 2-3 times that, okay, the answer I'm going to say is good, instead of just trusting my gut and what I already know, to just call the client right away. Hey, mister, here's the answer to your question. Boom. And then if I do that, I could achieve what that financial advisor you mentioned was doing, of getting an answer and getting something done right away. Because now there might be and again, 30-minute delay. We're not talking about a huge delay, but there's still a delay. If there was something where someone can call me and right away on the spot, I could give them the answer, or I get a voicemail or an email and I could just call them right away. I would love that, instead of having some type of paralysis by analysis, making sure that I really have the perfect answer instead of just making sure I have the right answer. And that's something where I have to give credit to some of our partners, the Équipe Morvan chez Hypotheca. One thing that I admire and that I always try to do better, because I try to be more like them in that aspect, is, I swear to God, you text them, whether it's 6 a.m, whether it's 2 p.m, whether it's 7 o'clock at night, within a minute they call you back. They call you back, they're available. And when you're going through something as stressful as buying a mortgage for a house, the fact that you know that if you text them, you're going to get an answer immediately, I think that is huge. And in insurance, the immediate needs aren't as prevalent, because it's such a thing. It's more we're planning for the long term. We're planning for potential risk down the line. But I think in our new business founders, we're going to have to be very reactive, the same way that you have to be reactive with your investment clients. If there's one thing, is I would actually like to be more like them, where someone texts me and within the minute I call them back. That'd be something. So what would I eliminate? That unnecessary analysis before I get back to them.
It's I tweeted about this yesterday, Zach, and a tip for you guys too. I mean, I don't know, it works for me. One of my biggest problems in the past, and especially I speak English. I also 90% of my clients though were in French. I did all of my post-secondary education in English as well. I am not the best writer in French. If you guys understand French and the grammar, it's difficult. I would take so long to compose that perfect email to make sure there was no mistakes or whatnot. I will now write something right away, click send without, I know I should probably review it. I just need it to get done. If not, I'm wasting too much time. If I have to think about something, I just go, I'll edit it later. Or if there's a mistake, they'll understand we're human. But people will value more that rapid feedback. It clears my mind quicker and I can get on to more productive things. So I hate having that paralysis by analysis. I want to get into a flow where I'm just working, getting the things off the task list done quick, fast, efficiently, helping as many more clients. So it's one of those things that sometimes we just want everything to be perfect, but you'll lose the end goal. And someone that's doing just below perfect, but doing very well, but is more efficient, will go a lot further than seeking that perfection.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, I lived the same thing with French. You know, we went to Bishop's University.
Yeah.
Before that, I was in CEGEP in English. So same thing. Everything post-secondary was English for me. And even you talk to some people at SFL in our network of advisors, and they'll tell you that I had an accent, a much bigger accent when I started.
Yeah.
And sometimes too worried about writing the perfect email instead of just getting them the information. The client is going to appreciate much more a quick answer, as long as it's the right answer, than a beautiful aesthetic email and a perfect answer when you could have just gotten the answer right away. Because even if it's a 30-minute difference, because when I'm talking about, I do this analysis, I'm not spending a whole day before I call the client back. It's maybe like 30 minutes, but if I call them back right away, that's 30 minutes less where they weren't worried or stressed or wondering if they were even going to get a call back in time. So, no, I love that.
What I want to finish on too, there's a concept where you should at least try to simplify everything where it could be taught at an 8th or 5th grade level. Look, I did my 5th grade in French, so I should be okay, but just conveying simple information that people can understand is way more important than formulating that perfect response. As long as the end message is well received, that's what's important. So sometimes focus too on simplifying rather than say, well, in order to do this, just say to do this. It comes out to the same thing, but sometimes we want to add a bit too much. So Zach, look, we went into very different topics, asking questions.
I love that. I loved how we did that. I like how we came into the podcast with something more than just, we usually have topics, but obviously this podcast is going to evolve. This is the last one in the single digits. Next podcast would be number 10. We're
on our way there.
Yeah, we're on our way there. But
thank you guys too for listening, because we've been getting some nice comments and feedback, and it's a nice way to share with you guys what we know, what we talk about, and these things that help us evolve as well, because this is a process for us too.
Yeah. And to those who actually do watch, we really appreciate it, because down the line, look, we are convinced we don't care about how much time this takes. We're just determined to make this happen, because we do know that there's a value to it. We mentioned earlier that financial literacy, there wasn't enough. And I think that the podcast, in a type of not as educational flat way, we kind of can bring some tips here and there, but this is evolving, and we're kind of learning how to do this on the fly too. We had our first live one. This is cool. It's cool that we have access to this room here to do our podcast, but just a lot of gratitude for everybody watching. Very thankful, and thankful to have people like Chris around that we could evolve, and we're going in the right direction. So 2024 is going to be an absolute blast. I hope you guys are having a great beginning to your year, and I hope you have big visions for what the year is going to bring to you. On that,
take care, everyone.
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.